In this presentation, we're going to look at the critical path. So in this network, we have 8 nodes and we have 11 activities, A, B, C, D, and so on. Each of those activities have their own duration. A takes 8 time units, B takes 4 time units, and so on. Now, let's look at the nodes here. They are split up into 3 segments. So the circle is split up into 3 segments. On the left-hand side, we simply have the number of the node, number 1, number 2, and so on. On the right-hand side, we have it broken up into 2 parts. The top part represents the earliest finish. That means the earliest we can be at that node with all of the required activities that you need to be at you need to have completed to get to that node. The earliest they are all completed. So in the first instance, we have node 1. The earliest we can be finished there is simply time 0. Oops, let's try that again. The earliest we can be finished there is time 0. Okay, now that's so far so good. Now A takes 8 time units, so I'm going to put a little red 8 there. And that means the earliest we can have everything completed at node 2 is time 8, and that's because we have activity A completed. So that's an 8 for there. What about node 3? Well, all we have to do for node 3 is make sure that activity B is completed. So the earliest we can have everything finished to be at node 3 is time equal 4. So I'm just going to put a little 4 here, just to sort of, that'll become clear as to why I do that in a short while. Activity C takes 3 time units, but to be the earliest finish, for the earliest finish at node 4, we have to have E completed as well. E can only be completed once A is completed, and E itself takes 2 time units. So the earliest we can have E finished is time 10. So we have to make a choice here. Is it C with 3 time units, or is it A and E with 10? So it's actually, we picked the greater of the 2 numbers, so that's going to be 10. Okay. Node 5, that's straightforward enough. We're going to do something similar there. This takes 6 time units, D, and that means we can start it at time 4 and we'd be completed at time 10. So that's the earliest finish for node 5 is simply 10. Let's look at node 6. This is where it gets more interesting now. So H takes 7 time units. So the earliest we can have that completed is at the 15th time unit. 8 for activity A, and then another 7 for activity H. So that's 15 there. But what about activity F? That would take 8 time units, and we only start at the 10th time unit. So we have everything finished on that path at time equals 18. And what about activity 9? Well, that takes 9 time units, so that will be 19 there. So what's the greatest of these 3 numbers? It's 19. Okay. Now, something similar for node 7. So J takes 2 time units, so that'll be 21. And I takes 5 time units, so that would have we would be there with at time, have that activity I finish at time 13. So again, what is the greatest number, greater of the 2 numbers there? That's 21. And there's only one activity required to have everything completed now once we're at node 7. That is activity K. That takes 3 time units. So the answer there is 24. Now, so I'm going to put in a little 24 there. So that is the earliest finish for each of the nodes. Now the latest finish for node 8 is also going to be 24. So that for the last node, the earliest finish and the latest finish should be the same. What we're going to do now is work back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up with a new page, and what we're going to do is find out the latest finish for each of those nodes. And then we can determine the critical path from that. Now I've taken some of the notation away just to make it easier to look at, just mindful of the fact it's on YouTube. So that's the only reason I got rid of some of the additional notation I put on there. Now, what we're going to do is work back. So we're going to do a very similar approach. What we're going to do is work back, starting at the 24th time unit, working back. So k takes 3 time units. So the latest we can finish there is 21, and that's the only one we have to consider. So in this case, it's going to be 21. Okay. Now, what is going? Let's look at the arrows that are pointing into arrow 7. What will be the latest finish? Looking through activity I and activity J. Well, first off, activity I. What's 21 minus 5? That is 16. Okay, so that I is takes 5 time units, and I'm subtracting 5 from 21 to get 16. What about J? That is 2 time units. So the latest we can finish, have everything finished at node 6 is 19. That's 21 minus the time unit for the time period, the duration for activity J. So it's 21 minus 2, that's 19. Now, so that is the only activity that points back to 19. So we're going to put a 19 in there. Okay. We don't have everything finished for node 2 yet, so I'm not going to worry about that for a while. Now, let's look at activity node 5 here for a second. G takes 9 time units, so the latest finish we can have for there is 10, and again that's the only one we have to consider, so that's 10 there. Let's look at node 4. Well, we have F, that takes 8 time units, so 19 minus 8, that would give us 11. And again, this is the only node route we have to consider, or activity we have to consider. It's the only one that points back, so that's going to be an 11 there. Let's look at node 3. That is 10 minus the look from node 5. That is 10 minus 6. That's the duration for activity D. That would give us 4 there. And again, that's the only one we have to consider, so that's a 4. Now, let's look at node 2. Let's look at from the point of view of activities H and activities E. We already have from the point of view of activity I already. How long does H take? That takes 7 time units, so 19 minus 7, that gives us 12. E, starting from node 4 and working back to node 2 through activity E, the latest finisher there is 11, and E takes 2 time units, so that's going to be 9. So we have, for the first time in this network, we have for the latest finish, what we have to do is figure out what we have to do, which one do we pick. We actually pick the lowest in this case, and this is going to be 9. Okay. So when we work back, what is the latest finish for A, or for node 2 is 9. Now, so we're nearly finished there. All we have to do is look at node 1 and figure out what is the latest finish for node 1. So the latest finish for node 2 is 9. That means from the point of view of activity A, which takes 8 time units, the latest finish there is 1. From looking at node 1 from the point of view of node 4 through activity C, the latest finish will be, in that case, will be 8. And through activity B, 4 minus 4 is 0. And again, what we do is pick the lowest number there. So that's a 0. Okay. So it's towards the end we it gets a bit more interesting. Now, what is the critical path? The critical path is through the nodes where the earliest finish and the latest finish are the same. So I'm just going to sort of point it out here. It's true. Well, it's nodes 1 to 3. There we go. I'm going to put in a. I'll take up that line actually. Make it pink. Magenta's grand. So there. So nodes 1 to 3 to 5 to 6 up there and down there. Okay, so that is the critical path. And let's just write out the activities on the critical path. So it's B, D, G, J, and K. So that's the critical path. It's a long bit of work there, but it's pretty easy to get the hang of it. Anyway, that ends our presentation.